The first time that I walked into a 10-day Vipassana meditation course, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know anything about the meditation technique, its purpose, or the philosophy behind it. All I knew was that it was a silent retreat and that we'd be meditating for maybe 10 hours a day. That's it. Of course, everything was explained during the course, but with my distracted mind, I probably retained less than 10% of what was said. Fast forward 12 years to my second retreat, and even that 10% had completely vanished. Frustrating, right? Well, by the end of my second course, I realized that if I had come prepared, I would have benefited a lot more from it, even from day one. That's why I decided to do some research to learn the essence of Vipassana meditation. Although I've already decided that I will never do another Goenka style Vipassana course, I still want to be prepared for other Vipassana retreats. And I think you guys will also find it helpful. So I'll explain what I've learned in a way that is hopefully accessible and memorable, so you guys can make the most out of your 10-day course right from the start, instead of waiting until the last day like I did. It's all gonna be based on my personal experience after completing 2 10-day courses and on these 2 books, The Discourse Summaries and The Art of Living by S.N. Goenka. I'll leave a link in the description. Okay, let's start with the basics. What is Vipassana? Vipassana is usually translated as deep insight or wisdom, and it's a Buddhist practice that is common to all Buddhist traditions. That includes the Theravada tradition and the Mahayana tradition. In Mahayana Buddhism, such as Tibetan Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, Vipassana is a type of analytical meditation where you contemplate or reflect on the nature of reality to realize that things lack inherent and independent existence. This is known as emptiness or sunyata, and is one of the core teachings in Mahayana Buddhism. The Heart Sutra, one of my favorite teachings from Tibetan Buddhism, is a teaching on emptiness. In the Theravada tradition, which is practiced mainly in Sri Lanka, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Burma, Vipassana is a type of mindfulness meditation that focuses on the direct realization of impermanence right within ourselves. So, in Mahayana Buddhism, the wisdom or insight that is referred to by Vipassana is the realization of emptiness, and in Theravada Buddhism is the realization of impermanence. In Mahayana Buddhism, Vipassana is an analytical meditation, and in Theravada Buddhism, Vipassana is a mindfulness meditation. So whenever you hear someone doing a Vipassana meditation course or retreat, it's usually going to be within the Theravada tradition, which focuses on impermanence, or anicca in Pali. The Vipassana meditation course taught by Goenka in his 10-day course is also part of this Theravada tradition. I'm not yet familiar with how Goenka's teachings on Vipassana might differ from other Theravada traditions. So keep this in mind. Whatever I'll explain here about Vipassana is based mainly on Goenka's teachings. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper. The Vipassana meditation taught in the Theravada tradition focuses on mental purification and on the development of wisdom, that is, the realization of impermanence. And according to Goenka, all this is attained by simply observing the body sensations with equanimity. That's it. You simply observe the physical sensations in your body, and that alone is supposed to purify your mind, leading you all the way to Nibbana, liberation, as long as you observe these sensations with equanimity. Okay, so let's break this up. How could observing body sensations purify the mind? Well, according to these teachings, whenever our senses come in contact with the external world, we experience a sensation in the body, although we might not be fully conscious of it. This also includes contact with mental objects, such as thoughts, memories, ideas. They also come along with a physical sensation, and because of past mental conditionings, we experience these sensations as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then, as soon as we experience a body sensation, we immediately react with craving if the sensation is pleasant, or aversion if the sensation is unpleasant. This happens so quickly that we are rarely aware of the sensation but only of our reactions. And these reactions of craving and aversion are what pollute the mind and what eventually lead to suffering. They are considered pollutants because they distort our perception of reality and agitate the mind. Craving forces us to cling to things that don't really give everlasting happiness. And aversion forces us to resist the natural flow of life. And every time that we experience craving and aversion, they leave an impression in the mind, a sankhara, which is like a seed that will sprout and create more reactions of craving and aversion. So how can we stop this vicious circle of creating more and more impurities? Well, we just need to observe the body sensations with equanimity. That is, without judging them as pleasant or unpleasant, and therefore without reacting with like or dislike, craving or aversion. By doing this, we stop the formation of new mental impurities, and the old ones gradually come up to the surface to be extinguished. Perhaps it will make more sense if I give you a real-life example. In my previous video, I told you that one of the things that I hated about Goenka's course was his chanting in Pali, which he does at the beginning and at the end of each meditation session. With every passing day, I was feeling more and more irritated by his chanting. Well, on day 10, the last day of the course, I decided to put into practice what I was learning during the course. So when the chanting started, I simply observed my body sensations without judging the experience as positive or negative. I observed how my body would become tensed and how my breath would become restricted the moment I heard his chanting. Nothing happened at that moment, but to my surprise, during the next session, when the chanting started, I didn't notice it. And when I finally became conscious of it, it didn't bother me at all. I was completely indifferent towards it. So by simply observing the physical sensations with equanimity, the aversion that I had been experiencing for 10 days just faded away. And I was able to break the cycle of creating more and more aversion. Okay, so now we understand how the mind is purified. But how can observing body sensations lead to wisdom? That is, the realization of impermanence. Well, it's actually pretty simple, although maybe not that easy to attain. When we practice Vipassana meditation, we experience within ourselves the impermanent nature of sensations. All these bodily sensations are always changing, constantly arising and passing away, to use some Buddhist terminology. It doesn't matter if it is a gross sensation or a subtle sensation. They are always changing. Sometimes we feel pain, then the pain dissolves, then it comes back. Or sometimes we may experience a pleasant, subtle sensation like pulsation or vibration, then it dissolves, then it comes back. Throughout the meditation session, we are constantly observing this arising and passing away of sensations. And so, little by little, we start to become more and more conscious of the impermanent nature of sensations, and therefore of the impermanent nature of reality. Eventually, as the subtle sensations intensify, even the idea of a permanent self, that is the idea of who I think I am, dissolves as there is nothing permanent in it. There is nothing solid that we can grasp. Well, at least that's what the theory says. So how exactly do we practice Vipassana meditation? Well, the best way to learn the technique is to join a course or retreat so you get to practice daily with the guidance of a teacher. But just to give you an idea, this is what you do in a Goenka style Vipassana course. First, before we practice the actual Vipassana technique, you have to develop samatha, a calm, sharp and concentrated mind. Otherwise, you won't be able to notice and stay with the sensations. So, during the first 3 days, we practice only ānāpānasati, mindfulness of breathing. And with each session, we try to make the mind sharper and sharper by narrowing down the area of concentration. You start by observing the natural breath and the sensations in the triangular area around the nose. And by the 3rd day, you already have narrowed down the awareness to focus only on the sensations and the nostrils. And on day 4, you start with the actual Vipassana meditation technique. For this, you simply move the awareness through each body part, from head to toes, and then from toe back to head. It's just like a body scan, but you do this continuously throughout the meditation session, observing any subtle or gross sensations. The sensations can be anything, like the touch of the cloth against the body, perhaps a feeling of cold or heat, maybe sweating, maybe pain or discomfort, which you will definitely experience from sitting all day in meditation, maybe a sensation of tingling, itching, pulsation, vibration, and so on. But the most important point is to observe the sensations with equanimity. That is, without reacting with craving or aversion, and without getting identified with the sensations. We simply observe. Also, you have to make sure you feel sensations everywhere. If you notice any blank areas or spot in the body where you don't feel sensations, you try to spend a little bit more time there to make sure you experience sensations everywhere. I'll talk more about this on my next video. So, to sum this up, whenever you hear about a Vipassana course or retreat, it usually refers to the Vipassana meditation technique taught in the Theravada Buddhist tradition, which focuses on mental purification and on the development of wisdom. Mental purification involves the elimination of craving and aversion, and wisdom involves the realization of impermanence. And all this is attained by simply observing the body sensations with equanimity. But before we observe the body sensations, it's important that we develop a sharp and concentrated mind with the practice of ānāpānasati, mindfulness of breathing. And that's it. That's all there is to it. I hope all this information will help you make the most out of your next 10-day Vipassana course right from the start. And if you're curious to know why I have decided that I will never do another Goenka style course, you can watch my previous video here. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next one.